Choosing a company that provides scanning services can be difficult because you don't know what you don't know. And if you did, you'd probably have a scanning company yourself. But because you don't, instead of banging your head against the wall and trying to figure out, what do I ask? Who do I go to? What should I even be looking for? We give you those questions to make it easy, at least in the initial stages of your research, to choose a partner and vet them with questions about scanning. So here are the last 5 questions you should ask when you're vetting a potential scanning partner. Can you run some samples before I commit to the project? That's a great question to ask a potential partner because you want to know if they will do sort of a pilot project, just a sample, so you can get an idea of your actual material and what it's going to look like and how it will be delivered. Of course, you can see demos and sort of templates of projects and whatnot, but there's nothing like seeing your own material after a sample's been done. So you're going to be able to check the image quality, indexing, basically how the files are named and how you can access them, but also critically, you're going to be able to figure out how the company works with you. That part of it is essential because if they're completely haywire during the sample, bad communication, whatever it is, delays, that can be an indication of how the actual project will go. And let's say you have 500 boxes of records and it takes them 3 months to do 1 box and it's just, again, poor communication, things don't turn out right, you're probably not going to get a good feeling about moving forward with the 500 boxes. On the other hand, if their communication is solid, transportation's great, the logistics are all there, they're constantly updating you, showing you the good quality and the indexing, and you're getting what you want, it's quick and tidy, then you're going to have a great feeling about the project. Again, the sample can't guarantee it's going to be either bad or good, but it should be a pretty solid indication. So getting that sample, not just good for the actual result of the material, but also you get to see how you're going to work with that scanning partner. Next, you should ask what kind of customer support you provide. And of course, everyone thinks customer support is when there's an issue you can call and somebody helps you. That's true, but the way we're talking about it here is you have pre-project, during project, and post-project. Now, pre-project will be, let's say you're working with your sales rep, your account executive, and you're putting together a scope of work, you're doing contracting, all that. What kind of support are you getting during that phase? Because you don't think of that as support, but it really is. If you're asking for a review of a contract or changes to the scope of work or whatever it is, further questions and clarifications, if you're not getting that support prior to the project happening, that could be a window into how the company will operate during and after the project. So you want to make sure that you're getting support you need before the project, just admin-wise, prepping for the project, everything along that. Then, of course, there's during the project. So while the actual scanning is taking place, how is the company helping you? Is your account executive, your sales rep, are they in touch with you giving updates? If you have questions about what's going on with your project, is someone getting back to you on where those are? If you have requests and you need files from the records that you sent over, are you able to get those? Can they help with that? So that's during the project customer support. And then of course, post-project, the classic, hey, we found something that didn't turn out right, kind of punch list items like, can this be fixed? The return delivery, what's the tracking? Invoicing, if there's an issue with the invoice, you have someone to contact directly about adjudicating that, just all those little items after the project. So don't just think customer support once you buy something and you have it, it's done. After the fact, think pre-project, during the project, and post-project. Now this one's always a fun one, and you should ask, do you use subcontractors? The answer is yes, and if they say no, that would actually be very surprising. Now we can't speak for everybody, but we use subcontractors. The majority of people that we know in the industry use subcontractors, and if they say they don't, it'd just be kind of odd because using subcontractors, basically other entities and other workers and companies that can help with projects, if they don't use them, you should just be a little suspect, I think, because that's how you scale projects. That's how you reduce costs very well, by using the companies that focus and specialize on various tasks that are not being done in a certain area or by certain people that are more expensive for that type of task. Common things that subcontractors do are indexing, so data capture, data entry. Let's say you send records that need to be scanned, paper records, we're capturing information from the folder. We may have someone key that data so that you have a file named by that folder. That's something that subcontractors are great at, just repetitive tasks over and over, size and speed and scalability. They also do image framing and image identification, so various pieces of a project. Subcontractors are not doing the entire project. So when you hear that, you shouldn't think, oh my gosh, they're doing every single piece, they're seeing everything. That's not how it's done, at least at BMI. We sub out small pieces of the project, and maybe one part, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, depends on your project and the size of it and the steps involved. but they're just doing pieces that are part of the whole. Now, we love our subs, and we've actually worked with many of them for 10, 15 plus years, and we go through a process where they're vetted. We have BAAs, business associate agreements with them, and each year they submit information about their security processes that we include in our audit. So our subs are vetted. They're not just random folks off the street. We don't keep changing them constantly. We have long-term partners with our subs, so we know how they work. They know how we operate. We have a very good relationship, so they are very involved in our projects. Now, something with subs, if you are talking to someone and they say they use them, you don't have to let the company use subs. You can say, I don't want you using subcontractors. You need to do everything in-house. That's completely fine. Just be aware that may be more expensive. It may take longer if you don't allow subcontractors to be utilized. Now, the next question is, do you have a disaster recovery plan? So no one wants to think about disasters, but it is important with digitization because if you're handing off your records to a company, first you have the physical aspect of it. How are your facilities protected? How are my records stored? Who's accessing them? What can happen? That's one part of disaster. Then there's the digital side. So once they're scanned, how is your data protected? How do you mitigate hacks and breaches or loss of data, things of that sort? So you want to ask, do you have a disaster recovery plan to protect the data? It's also, if there is a disaster, because you can't rule them out, how is that company going to get back online and continue operations? If you have them doing a project and there's, let's say, an earthquake or something, or a flood, you want to know that, okay, there's a disaster. What's your plan to get back up and running? If you have my records, if I need these are essential to my operations and I work with you, I contracted with you, I need to know that you can get back online and get moving again. That's part of that disaster recovery plan, is not just having an idea of a disaster could happen, but how to actually come back online and get operations resumed. Now, if you're hosting with us, BMI specifically, you're using our digital real platform, we're hosting your records, you have your secure portal, you're getting them. Something to consider for hosting is co-location and replicating sites. Talking about BMI specifically, for digital real, we have two server sites. One is at our headquarters in Sunnyvale, the other is in Sacramento, located down the street from our Sacramento office at NTT Global. So they are made for data hosting. We have a cage inside there. That's our second site. So if one of them goes down, there's a disaster, just something goes wrong with the server, and you're hosting with us, one goes down, the other one will be available for you. So you have redundant hosting. That can also be part of your disaster recovery plan, not just ours, but yours. Of if you're going through an audit and an auditor says, well, you're hosting with this company, BMI, well, how are they protecting your data? You can say, well, we're hosting with them. They have two sites, they're redundant, they're co-located, so if one goes down, the other's available. That's something to consider with anyone you're hosting with as part of your own disaster recovery plan. And lastly, you could ask, what kind of insurance do you carry? Of course, again, you're talking about negative things and bad things happening to records and all that. No one really wants to talk about, but it is important because you can't remove all risk, you can mitigate it, but in the case that something does happen, you want to know, what kind of insurance do you carry? So that could be, classic commercial general liability insurance. There may be error and omissions insurance. And then of course, if you're doing digitization, you have sensitive records, you have things that are going to be available in an electronic format, you should be asking about cyber insurance and what kind of coverage is involved with that. Again, you can't remove all risk. You can't say, hey, you have to agree that you'll never be hacked or breached or anything, because that's impossible. No one can do that. But you can mitigate as much as possible by asking about security policies, how they handle records, etc., and so forth. And then also asking, if it does happen, what kind of insurance do you carry and how do you cover this in the case of a bad thing happening? So you want to ask, what kind of insurance do you carry? We also recommend carrying your own insurance for your records, because even if a company like ours has it, that doesn't mean you can't get it for your records as well. So that's something you should look into. All right, so that wraps up the last 5 questions about vetting a potential scanning partner. If you haven't seen the other 2, I'm going to put a video right here of the first 5 questions, and if you watch that, you can then see the second one as well. I'm also going to put in the comments a link to contact us if you have any questions about digitization, for a quote, for a project, anything about this video. Feel free to reach out to us. Thank you for watching.